Hi, everybody. I've been plugging away at listening to recordings from a recent biohacking conference. There's an annual biohacking conference, kind of looking at all the kind of latest and greatest cutting edge therapies that are out there. I mean, at least the latest, anyways. I mean, going through the recordings, I don't know that everything in there is the greatest per se, but innovative for sure. Latest and most innovative, anyways, stuff that's out there. And one of the lectures that I just finished listening to, I thought was really interesting, and I thought the information would be interesting to folks who follow me on various social media channels that I'm on. So just before I jump into the crux of the video, if you don't mind taking a quick minute to either like or share, subscribe, or post a quick comment on the video, I'd really appreciate it. And thanks in advance for taking a second to do that. And also, as per usual, nothing I'm saying should be construed as medical advice. This is for informational purposes only. If you need medical advice, please talk to your healthcare provider to get that advice. So I was listening to a lecture that was given by an orthopedic surgeon. Her name is Dr. Vonda Wright. And Dr. Wright was talking about some of the research literature looking at how our bodies change over the course of time as it relates to muscle mass. I've talked about this a little bit in some of my video posts before, and actually I talked about this in more depth during one of my recent podcast episodes. If you're not aware, I have a podcast called the Overcoming Chronic Illness Podcast, available on all of the major podcast platforms, and I also post all of the recordings of those interviews where I interview doctors from all over the place, mostly around North America, on my YouTube channel as well. In the episode that I posted let's see here, where are we now? I guess it was around the end of July, give or take. It was called Treatments That I'm Excited About in Practice Right Now. I went into more detail in terms of the importance of muscle mass, kind of maintaining muscle mass to help promote our health span and our lifespan, and how that can be really important. I mean, in some cases in my own practice, very important for folks dealing with complex chronic illnesses. I think it's important for all of us. Anyone who wants to stay healthy for as long as possible, muscle mass is something to really pay attention to. And I don't mean like getting super jacked like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. I mean just having good muscle mass, relatively speaking, good strength, and there's lots of health benefits associated with that. So one of the things that Dr. Wright was talking about during her lecture was just the impact that regular exercise has on maintaining muscle mass. There's kind of this thought out there, out in the ether, whether it's propagated through traditional media outlets or what doctors tell their patients, behind closed doors or whatever, wherever the thoughts are coming from. It seems that there's kind of this thought out there, and I know I say this because patients come in asking me about this, and so I hear it straight from the horse's mouths, so to speak, that at a certain point in time, our health starts to decline, our muscle mass starts to go down, that we start to, go from being, able to maintain good health to, starting to inevitably we're going to start being less healthy over time. And at the end of the day, nothing could really be further from the truth. It's true that as we do spend more time being alive, we do have to put in more elbow grease and have to be more careful with the health choices we make, lifestyle choices we make to maintain our current state of health, or maintain our current state of health or gain additional health. We can get away with a lot more in our early 20s than we can when we're in our mid 60s or beyond. But what was really encouraging from Dr. Wright's presentation material is that she was showing these basically cross sections of I believe it's the quadricep muscles, like the thigh muscles of patients who were, I believe, in their mid 60s or early 70s or something like that, and basically showed that folks who were leading a more sedentary lifestyle, they had, as she refer to it as marbling in their legs. So there's lots of fat deposition, not as much muscle mass. Whereas the folks who were staying active, who were exercising regularly, they had muscle mass that looked still really good. Maybe not like someone in their prime in their 20s, let's say, but definitely still looking notably better than the control subjects who are more sedentary. So it's just really heartening to see that there's this. In clinical practice, we see evidence of this. Some of my patients who are in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, they're healthier than some of my patients who are in their 20s or 30s because they're taking really good care of themselves, they're being really active and all of that. So clinically, I can say, yeah, that's something that I've seen in practice, but just nice to see that, objective research evidence that, like, yes, this is something that will actually preserve muscle mass. So really important. The other quick little tidbit that I wanted to share from Dr. Wright's talk was that there was some research that was done looking at the impact of exercise in terms of waking up stem cells in the body. So stem cells are something that we all produce in our tissues throughout the course of our lives, much more in our younger years, of course, when we're growing in utero, when we're babies and growing so rapidly throughout childhood, lots more stem cells, but even as beleaguered, fully grown adults, we still produce stem cells. However, the stem cells are not nearly as prolific or as active as we spend more time, again, being alive as we get older. And so what was really interesting was to see that it was a mouse study, mice or rats, I can't remember which it was, but some type of rodent. They basically looked at the activity of their stem cells and saw these basically sedentary mice they had that were at a certain vintage. I mean, in mouse years, maybe a 6-year-old mouse is old. I'm not really, I can't remember the exact age of the mice, but anyways, they were older mice, they were sedentary older mice, and their stem cells were pretty sleepy. And so they put these mice on an exercise routine, running on little mouse treadmills, and essentially it awakened their stem cells. The stem cells became much more biologically active, and that is something that is really exciting to hear about, because it does suggest, or does indicate, that even if, you're listening to this video thinking like, oh my gosh, like I've been sedentary, or due to health reasons I haven't been able to be as active, I'm still maybe dealing with chronic health issues, it doesn't mean that there isn't still hope for the future when a person feels well enough that they can start exercising once they've dealt with their chronic health issues, or if they had chronic health issues but they've kind of quote unquote lost some time not being able to be as active, so they're feeling sort of deconditioned, or not as physically healthy as they should be, not as physically fit as they ideally would be, or if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I haven't had chronic health issues. I don't have chronic health issues, but I've been fairly sedentary. Just getting back in the saddle, getting that exercise back in place is something that can wake up these stem cells, and that's something that's associated with better health, tissue repair, all that good stuff. Dr. Wright said a lot of other interesting things, and she has access to a lot of really fancy technology, looking at sort of optimizing a person's biochemistry and exercise regimens and things like that. So her lecture has definitely given me more homework, things to look into, seeing what kind of things I might be able to bring into my practice here in beautiful little Halifax, Nova Scotia. But some pretty exciting tools out there. So I'll post more about this topic when I have something relevant to say about it. But for now, just I think a kind of a heartwarming message that if we're active, we can stay healthy, we can maintain that good health span and lifespan for many years to come, and that even if we haven't been so active, if for one reason or another we've had more sedentariness in our lives than is ideal, then it doesn't mean that we can't get back on the wagon and activate those stem cells and kind of start working towards a better state of health. So I hope this information was useful. If you have any questions or comments about this, if you have any stories to share about your own personal journey in terms of, I was sedentary and now I'm not and I feel so much better, or I don't know, it could also be bad stories, if like less encouraging stories, like I was sedentary and I've tried to get back in the saddle, but I've had this or that obstacle or whatnot. Feel free to comment, share in the comment section below. And if it's good news stories, well, I'll applaud you. If it's not so good news stories, maybe mention some of the specifics around it. Maybe I can post a subsequent video to maybe give some information that might be useful to help make that situation better. So again, thanks for your attention, and I'll leave it there for now.